Welcome to Carrie Bros Pros, the podcast for construction pros by construction pros. Now, here are James and Morris Carey.
Hi, I'm James Carey, and it is great to have you with us on this edition of Carrie Bros Pros. You know, engineered wood products are not new, but they're constantly evolving. Not only are they beneficial to our environment, they're a cost-effective alternative, and often they can lend structural integrity to your project and allow you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do with dimensional lumber. And with that, we are joined on the Carrie Bros Pros Expert Hotline by Chris Brandt, and Chris is the Engineered Wood Products Software Manager. Chris, welcome to Carrie Bros Pros.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
So, Chris, Boise Cascade is a heritage brand.
Absolutely. You know, we're one of the nation's largest building materials distribution companies, and we specialize in engineered wood, obviously.
You do specialize in engineered wood. That is now the emphasis for Boise Cascade. It was not always the emphasis, but it is today, yes?
It is, yes. I mean, we also make plywood and some lumber products, but engineered wood products is our main product line. You know, we're a much larger company in the paper and building materials industry, but we've simplified it down.
So, Chris, expressed in percentages, to what degree would you say your business is devoted to engineered wood? 70%?
A big chunk, yes.
And you know
absolutely.
why that is? Because the demand for your products has increased.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the market for engineered wood products has really taken off, you know, not just in the last decade or so, but in the last several decades. It's gone from sort of a niche product to a point where it's really the de facto new material for construction.
Why, Chris? What do you attribute that to? What are some of the features and benefits of engineered wood products that our listeners should know about as they design projects, especially our architects, our designers, and our design build contractors that tune in?
Absolutely. I think you probably want to start with consistency. So, you know, not to knock on Mother Nature and sawn lumber, but you know, all those knots and pinholes and twisting and warping as things dry, we've been able to take that same log and peel it down into pieces and parts and put it back together in a more consistent manner so that each piece is seemingly indistinguishable from the next, as opposed to sorting through a bunk of lumber where you're looking at, you know, is this piece good enough for trim? Is this piece of joist? You know, should this one be thrown into the coal pile? So that's one of the biggest things. You know, lightweight. An I section is definitely much lighter weight than a 2x joist. And really, the one I'd like to talk about today is floor performance, which is not something that you know, the average builder gets into until you have a callback.
All right, before we go to floors, let's talk a little bit just for a moment, because we're gonna drill down now. We're gonna go to floors.
Okay.
But let's talk a little bit about the array of engineered wood products that Boise Cascade offers. Take us through the offerings.
Sure. So product line I-joist, obviously. So that's a flange with a narrow OSB web in the middle of it. So it looks like a steel I-beam if you've never seen one before, just made of wood.
That's floor joist or between floor joist.
Yep, floor and roof joist. Yep, sorry. The application would be floor and roof joist for those.
Okay.
Then you go to the rectangular product, and our brand name for that is Versalam.
Yep.
And so these are traditional rectangles, but they're made up of veneer. So it looks like plywood, if you've ever seen the cross-section of plywood, except all of the veneers point in the same direction. And that's how we get an increased strength and stiffness relative to, say, a plywood product. And those come in a range of sizes from down to, you know, 1.5 inches, 1.25, all the way up to 3.5 to 7 inch wide solid sections. And in depths ranging from a common 2x4 size all the way up to 18 and 24 inch big sizes.
Holy moly, that'll make a great hip.
Yes, absolutely.
I can use that for a hip. I can also use a mini lamp for a hip, depending upon the span and the architectural specification. Yeah. Ridge beams too, right.
Yep. You know, main girder, if you think about a big open floor plan or an open basement down below where you need to minimize the post down, a nice big beam and combined with long span I-joists gives you great open floor plans. Right.
And you've got rim boards too. Tell us about that.
We do. So rimboard sort of ties the whole system together. It's a complementary product. So as you think of your traditional band joist or something, we have engineered lumber boards that are compatible in depth so that it doesn't crush the I-joist, and the whole system comes together nicely. So you can close out the perimeter and cantilevers and all your closure. With our rimboard product, also lateral load carrying capacity, so tying your floor system into the foundation so that in seismic and wind events, things don't blow away.
All right, Chris, I know that you want to go to floor joist, but before we do that, I suppose that there's no part of a wood frame structure, floor, walls, between floor, roof, ceiling, that you guys, and exterior envelope in the way of shear, that you guys can't handle.
That's right. We have a product for each one of those applications.
Okay, great. You're dying to talk about joist, and I'm dying to hear what it is you have to say, because you're excited, I can tell.
And I am. I've played in the area of floor performance for most of my career, off and on, last 18 years in the engineered wood products business. And so I've studied this as an engineer and researcher, and I've dealt with it as a callback tech support person for helping a homeowner, helping builders and lumberyards work through this issue. So I'm pretty excited about what we've come up with. So before I dive deep into that, let's kind of maybe talk about the concept of a bouncy floor, right? So as a builder, one of the worst callbacks you can get from a homeowner is either it feels like I'm walking downhill towards my kitchen island, or even worse, things rattle in my cupboards, or it just feels like my floor is soft. And the reason I say those are some of the worst is because they come after everything's finished. But the problem is in the structure, which is already enclosed, and there's very little you can do about it after the fact. There's some clumsy add-ons and tacking on extra material here and there, but it's really a hard one to solve after the fact.
I can hear the designers and builders listening, grinding their teeth with familiarization about the picture that you're painting.
It is. It's expensive.
Oh, it's terrible. It is miserable. I mean, it's just, It's miserable. And it's so easily preventable.
It is. And, it just takes a little bit of time up front to think about what you're doing. So, maybe without diving into the details, let's talk about floor performance and what that means for people who aren't familiar with that term. And for me, I think of it as two aspects. The first one is deflection. So, simple terms, that's the downward movement of the floor under the weight that it's trying to support. So whether that's kitchen island, a refrigerator, or me, the floor moves in response to that. And how much it moves impacts whether you notice it or not.
Yes.
So the second piece of that would be vibration. And there's two components of vibration. The first one is, when you're walking on the floor, can you feel it moving in response to you? Do you get that weird queasy feeling where you can feel the ground isn't quite solid under your feet? Second one is, say, you're sitting at the kitchen table and your teenager runs through to go answer the phone or something, and you feel the whole house rattle and shake as all those footfalls happen. And so those can be really annoying issues, but with a little bit of upfront planning and design work, you can mitigate those. So, anybody listening might wonder, frame construction's been around forever. How come this is still a problem? Why are we still talking about
Exactly.
this?
Isn't it all about, first of all, the integrity of the framing member? That's number one. Two, span, which has to do with, of course, size and the mid-span support. And three, also spacing, yes?
It is, absolutely. And, and you throw in good quality construction along with that, right? So the best laid plans, I think, is how the saying goes, right? And so you start with the right materials, have a good design, and then have them installed properly. And so when it goes right, everything comes together. The homeowner rarely notices anything about the floor, right? It's just in the background. But when something goes wrong, it can be the only thing they notice and fixate on. And unfortunately, that becomes sometimes a very emotional issue for them and very difficult for the builder to overcome and really get that relationship back to a good spot.
So what do you offer the architect, designer, or design build contractor in as much as utilities are concerned in helping them make sure that they don't end up with a bouncy floor?
So what we've done is we've created something called BC Floor Value, and that's a tool in our software that we provide to our designers at our dealer and distributor locations. So if you're a builder or contractor and you're working with a lumberyard and they stock Boise Cascade products, they have access to this software. So if you think about this, it's not something where you have to invest your time to figure out the design and use the software. You really need to just go in and talk to your lumberyard where you're buying the Boise Cascade products from and say, I would like to use BC Floor Value on this next project. I'd like to understand how this floor is going to work. And BC Floor Value itself is four components. The first one is what we call a heat map. And if you think of like a rainfall map on a radar where you see the dark portions where it's raining really hard and then nothing where it's not, same concept, but we're looking at the deflection of the floor. So we can take all the individual pieces and parts from the floor joist and the subfloor and the beams and walls that support them. We analyze that entire thing as a complete system, and we say maybe this floor joist doesn't deflect very much, but because it sits on a beam that deflects a little bit more, you might have a soft spot or a low spot in the floor in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And so it visually gives the designer an indication of areas where they might need to either add some more material or think about changing spacings or upgrade the product. And that heat map can be printed on the layout so that when the builder sees the framing layout, they also can see what that map will look like. The next piece of it is a vibration piece. So back to that annoying
yes.
vibration feel. Yep. And so we look at that same floor system. We say, okay, here's the worst performing element in your floor from a vibration standpoint, and we've assigned it to a simple 3-tier rating system. So we have a minimum, an enhanced, and a premium. And we tried to keep it simple because there are other systems in the market that assign numerical scores, and it's just psychologically difficult for people to wrap their head around, 42 versus 37.
Yes. You know me.
Yeah. Right. So I really wanted to make something that was simple. So it's minimum, which is sort of that code minimum performance, great for an entry-level project, my budget conscious. There's enhanced, which is sort of where, sweet spot of most people in that move-up home or even their forever home. And then there's premium, and that would be maybe your high-end custom home, the discerning customer. And so we let you see that from a vibration perspective, we believe the floor falls into this category. Then there's one other piece on top of that on the structural analysis side of it, and that's the sheathing between the joists. So the other rating systems in the market, they focus on the joists themselves.
Yes.
Right? So this joist is stiff and strong. But if they're spaced at 16, 19, 2, 24, the chances of you walking perpendicular to the floor framing and stepping between the joists and feeling the give of the sheathing between them is a real thing.
Is very high.
I'm not a big guy, but I've walked job sites where if I stepped just right, I could feel the sheathing give underneath me each time, even though the floor was designed to be very stiff. And so we added that into the BC Floor Value System. So we give the sheathing itself a rating. And so in areas where you've got, whether it's vinyl or carpet or something that's not a stiff finish, you can make sure that those areas have the proper between joist stiffness. And then the final piece that I think really ties everything together is this cost performance optimization. And so
wow, now wait a minute. That's a big phrase. Cost performance optimization?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, right. So
I like it.
Everything is great. Yeah, right. So as a designer, for the person not making the financial decision, everything on the software is a possible option. I can give you the most expensive product at a tight spacing, and to me it's no different on the layout than an economically built floor where I've used the right materials in the right places and I've tuned the spacing to be just what it needs to be for the application. That's really about designer choices and about the quality of designer that you're working with. Well, what we wanted to do is we wanted to take some of that out of the designer's hands and say, they need to be able to provide options. You need to be able to not have a lot of skill in design and understanding whether deeper joisted, tighter on center spacing or wider on center spacing or shallower joists and longer spans and short spans made a difference. We wanted to let you say, I'd like to consider these 4 or 5 materials at these on-center spacings. Here's how much they cost me per foot or per unit. Here's my beam costs. Give me package prices for these floors, and then show me alternatives where I could move the performance up or down or stay in the same category and optimize the cost. So we think that's really unique in this space.
All right, let's carry a little further. Your title is Engineered Wood Products Software Manager. Is that where the rubber meets the road as regards to what you're talking about and your job title, Software Manager?
It is. So I manage the development of our software programs, and one of the projects I had the pleasure of working on was creating this BC Floor Value project. So I don't operate the software, but I help create the software itself. So listening to our customers, understanding what their problems are, what needs they have, and then trying to come up with technology solutions to help them.
So I see something called BC Calc software at your website. What is it? And how can our listeners benefit from it?
So BC Calc is a single-member beam and joist, roof rafter column stud sizing tool. It's freely available to anyone who wants to use it. Not only does it specify Boise Cascade products, but it also has dimension lumber in there because we know that they're commonly intermixed on a job site. We'd love for people to use only engineered wood products, but we understand that there are times where the most economical choice is, glue lam beam or dimension lumber. So we try to be fair in that. And how could the listeners use it? So let's say, common remodeling case, you're taking out a wall, you need to pop a beam flush up into the floor system, but you're not sure what size of beam, what grade, what specification it needs to be. So if you can understand the geometry and the loading well enough to input the spans and the load cases, that software will go through and help you perform the engineering analysis on the beam to let you know if it passes or